You might think it was an impulsive decision, me at 6 running away from school, but you'd be wrong, because I foresaw a future failure with figures and knew a life without arithmetic was my only hope. After yet another round of staring blankly at my math book, I told Miss Pogue, my first grade teacher, I didn't feel well and asked if I could go call my mother. All the teachers knew my mother. She was hospitality chairwoman for the PTA and hosted many faculty teas. My mother had named me after 2 Miss Arkansas pageant winners, Sally Ann Miller and Suzanne Scudder. Sally Suzanne. Mother and her identical twin sister were 2 years old when they entered their first pageant. They won. In the faded Arkansas Gazette article from 1933, Rubina and Shervina are sitting on the grass wearing swimsuits and frowns. Maybe they'd eaten too much potato salad. Maybe the sun was shining in their eyes and they were hot, but maybe they didn't care that much about the Greater Little Rock Grocers and Butchers Picnic Baby Contest. My grandmother is kneeling behind them in the grass. She's wearing a long-waisted print dress and her brown hair is parted on the side in a fashionable bob. She too looks weary. Well, Miss Payne sent me to the office to make that call, while the secretary of Sunnyside School, Miss Henry, was not looking. I held the bottom button on the black phone down. I then carried on a conversation with the receiver about my stomach ache. I felt just awful. Soon, Miss Henry told me to take care of myself and that I could wait outside Sunnyside's red brick walls for my mother. Instead, I skipped down block past Miss Pogue's classroom windows, past the monkey bars, and the t-ball field to my friend Wally Branch's office, house. Instead, I skipped down the block past Miss Pogue's classroom windows, past the monkey bars, and the t-ball field to my friend Wiley Branch's house. The white shutters on his yellow house had black flourishes that resembled tiny smiles. Mr. Branch had painted the notes on the piano keys for Wiley to learn his scales. No one interrupted, and no one spoke out of turn at their dinner table, like we did at ours with me and my 7 brothers and sisters. One time, when Wiley visited me for supper, he asked my mother why everyone fought. The Branches were the living example of gallant. From the Highlights magazine, I rushed up the front steps to grab from the postman each month. I knocked on their back door, and within minutes was eating a peanut butter and jelly sandwich only Miss Branch could make. She combined the grape jelly with Jif to create a smooth, velvety food of the gods and spread it on white bread, crust removed. I began sipping the glass of milk she placed before me and rushed to explain I was moving in with Wiley and his twin brothers. Miss Branch stared at me, raised her reading glasses up to her nose, and started flipping through pages in the phone book. Guess what? I have a visitor today, Miss Branch began. Her voice was soft. My mother, years later, would tell me this part of the day's events. I had already visualized moving my own toy box into their vast rectangular room in their attic. My pink bucket would be a nice complement to the boys' red, blue, and green trunks. Oh, you do? Asked my mother. Yes, Miss Sally knocked on my door this afternoon. She's left school, she says. Sally! Pogue's first grade class a year after I failed as a Southern beauty queen. It's true. My family didn't go around saying, "Little sister, what a failure you are," but the notion hung in the air like turnip greens boiling on the stove. My mother enrolled me in the triple crown of a Southern girl's education: baton twirling, tap dancing, and ballet, before I had entered kindergarten. A photograph shows me in first position wearing a pink and white sequined leotard, a pink tutu, pink tights, pink lip gloss. My sister Mary dabs ever so slightly on my bottom lip, and white tap dancing shoes I insisted on wearing. They were a better match with a leotard, no matter that this was our ballet photograph for Miss Sarah School of Dance. This was the preparation I needed to win the Miss La Petite Chattanooga pageant. But when it was my turn to smile, pivot, turn, and twist, I got distracted by the stage props. I was wearing a new lavender dress, a color my mother called orchid, with applique flowers. I had my eye on the potted plants next to the white picket fence. Instead of standing on the masking tape starred downstage, I broke from the line of contestants during the grand finale, walked upstage, opened the gate, and began rearranging the daisies. I am told the other La Petite wannabes turned toward me while people whispered, then roared with laughter. Sarah Wadley, an employee of my parents and my mother's confidant, thought I spoke like Zsa Zsa Gabor, and began calling me Lucy after that night, in honor of Lucille Ball. Miss Pogue said I talked too much, and wrote that on my first report card. I earned an S for satisfactory on all of my math assignments, but that did not stop me from turning the book over to the end paper to peek at that evil club, an imposing fortress of 11 times 11 and 12 times 12 columns some people call multiplication tables. The columns of symbols mocked me, yet I flashed the back of the book just like I tongue a loose tooth to feel the pain. My mother had been working alongside Sarah in the basement office, packing up pictures for customers across the Southeast. She quickly ended the call with Miss Branch and relayed the story to Sarah. Sarah worked for my parents, mostly cleaning convex glass with vinegar, stapling cardboard boxes together, and answering the phone. Natural Portrait Company. She befriended me a lot with our secret bad word of the day game, where she'd whisper "damn" or "hell" in my ear, and I giggled. I hadn't even finished my glass of milk before Sarah and my mother whisked me away up to the hill to the principal's office. Sarah was convinced I had been molested. Mr. Wolf, our fast-walking and fast-talking principal, was the only adult male besides the janitor, Raymond, and Side the cat, cat that walked the halls of the school and was featured in Mr. Wolf's loving arms in all of our class photographs. "Has Mr. Wolf done anything to harm you, Sally?" He peered at me as I hid beneath his desk. "No, sir," I said, while folding my knees into my chest, my arms wrapping around my bent legs. I can only imagine Sarah's broad head bending down, eyebrows raised, lips pursed. My mother probably had her purse in her lap and her shapely legs crossed. By this time, Miss Pogue and my mother joined Mr. Wolf, leaning over, crowded into the small space between his desk and the window where the late afternoon sun cast a shadow on a photograph of the Chattanooga Boys Choir, where Mr. Wolf volunteered. I didn't cry. There was no point. I was a girl facing a fear of symbols, on top of the fact I preferred Brainerd Drugstore Opry Ballet chocolate malts to dance routines. I had made up my mind, and that was that. My mother says I stayed under the table for an hour before I admitted it was math that compelled me to quit school. They didn't believe me. Miss Pogue volunteered to retrieve the book, and then I flipped the book over to expose the culprits. But Sally, school has only just begun. Don't you think Miss Pogue will prepare you for multiplication? I really didn't give that much thought. The wood floors of Sunnyside School still had a waxy, slick shine, not scuffed up yet. So I got out from underneath the desk, accepted my math book from Miss Pogue, and walked, not skipped, past the school office and past the teacher's lounge. For the first time, I heard the wood floors of Sunnyside School groan, creak even under my laced-up clogs. Well, anyway, I did look forward to more running and sliding near the cafeteria entrance when the teachers weren't looking.